Welcome, Mr. Secretary. Got a tough act to follow there in Secretary Kerry, but I'm sure we can do it.
And the introduction as well.
And Margaret and Steve Clemens. Let me start with I think a question that you probably get a lot, and that Secretary Kerry I think gets a lot, which is, what's the harm in doing Keystone?
As Secretary Kerry has said, as the responsible official, he is hoping to decide that question soon.
Fair enough. Something else I wanted to get into with you a little bit is tax reform, the question of corporate tax reform. And I know that's something you probably don't deal with or think about a whole lot, but there are a lot of incentives in the energy market and the energy world that are affected by that question of whether corporate tax rates should come down and benefits, breaks, targeted breaks should be given up. You've promoted so many energy credits and R&D credits, things like that. What's the cost? Is there a cost to not using tax credits, the tax policy as an incentive for behavior?
Well, let me broaden it a little bit from tax policy to, in general, a set of incentives that we have to accelerate the transformation to a low-carbon future. And we make no mistake about it, the President has made it very clear that we are committed to going in that direction. So let me give you a couple of examples. First of all, this is not in the tax world, but the Department of Energy has rather enormous loan guarantee authorities. We have $40 billion left in play. We intend to continue the great success with that portfolio over the last years across the energy spectrum, from fossil to renewables and efficiency. On the tax side, Senator Wyden, for example, who now chairs the Finance Committee, is really hoping to advance significant tax reform, but specifically in the energy arena. Let me give you a good example. Master limited partnerships are an area where there is an enormous amount of equity in the market, but for historical reasons, it's restricted to fossil energy. If we could just broaden that out to across the board, including renewables, for example, these would provide excellent new vehicles, we think, for attracting more private capital into a clean energy future.
So would you oppose getting rid of the tax incentives that exist for renewable energy?
We clearly support extension of the current tax credits. We especially support having predictable incentives. As you know, for example, with wind, with the production tax credit, its oscillations over time directly impact the ability of firms and customers, for that matter, to make investments. So we need, I do believe, we need to extend those renewable tax credits. We need to do it in a way where there is predictability on all sides.
You have a quadrennial energy review coming out in January. I guess like the Department of Defense's quadrennial defense review, State Department now has its own quadrennial review. What have you learned about the nation's energy infrastructure in the course of putting that together?
Perhaps it's worth just saying a word about what it is, since it's a little bit of inside baseball. But what we are doing, it's very different in execution, I might say, to the quadrennial defense review, in the sense that in energy, it's really a whole of government exercise because the equities in energy are so broadly distributed. So we are working across the administration. That's an important point. Secondly, the first year's focus is specifically, as you've said, Jonathan, on energy infrastructure. We have seen enormous challenges to our energy infrastructure over the last years, mainly a set of regional challenges. For example, New England, the absence of a natural gas infrastructure has led to enormous spikes. We have the issues of the polar vortex and propane in the Midwest. We have the issue of oil by rail for lack of infrastructure. So that's what we are looking at. What we are finding is a little bit of a preview. What we are finding is that the level of investment in the infrastructure we need going forward is not out of line with what is happening already. It's the issue of how do we direct it in a way, how do we help guide it to a way that supports the kind of clean energy future that we are looking for. How do we introduce the right information technology into the electric grid, for example. So those are the kinds of policy recommendations that we'll be coming out with. But in some sense, what we are seeing already is it's not an issue of the level of investment, because that has come up dramatically already in the last years, especially in response to our new energy situation.
It's just the direction.
It's how do we guide it towards having the transactional capacity to support a clean energy infrastructure, which may include distributed generation, for example. How do we guide it to be resilient against what we expect to be increasing bouts of extreme weather, against cyber attacks, against physical attacks, against geomagnetic storms. So there's a whole set of risks. And so we need to invest in this 21st century infrastructure in a way that both supports clean energy and provides resilience against a broad threat spectrum.
Your aides told me that you're an all-of-the-above energy guy. And I want to ask about that because there's, I think, a promotion of natural gas, clean coal, as you mentioned. Republicans attack Democrats and say there's a war on coal, certainly the traditional existing infrastructure. Is that true?
There isn't a war on coal. There is, make no bones about it, there is a fundamental commitment, starts with the President, on moving to a low-carbon future. What we mean by all of the above is within that constraint, we walk the talk. We make major investments in developing the technology and lowering the costs for using all fuels in that low-carbon world. So coal, what does that mean for coal? It means we have deployed $6 billion to advance the kinds of integrated coal projects that involve capturing the carbon dioxide. Most of them, 6 of the 8, involve using that carbon dioxide to enhance oil recovery, so it provides you a valuable product that lowers the cost of the capture. We have a solicitation right now for our loan program, $8 billion for supporting fossil fuel technologies, including coal, that reduce emissions. So we are working really hard to get those technologies developed, deployed, demonstrated, so that everybody understands what the path forward is for coal in a low-carbon economy.
Do you worry at all?
May I just ask you one other thing? Is we also, in the carbon context, we also have to keep in mind that this requires a global solution. We all know, we use somewhat shy of 1 billion tons a year of coal in the United States. The Chinese are at or near to 4 billion tons. India is building up. So we need to have these technology solutions that are going to be applied globally.
U.S. Ban on crude oil exports. Where do you stand with that, with regard to that right now? Do you think that's something that will be lifted?
Well, there are a number of arguments, obviously, as you well know, on that, and we've made it very clear that within the administration, it involves multiple agencies, again, Commerce, Department of Energy, et cetera, that, first of all, there's been no policy change. We do export products, of course, oil products, and we are examining the whole issues around the increase in oil production in the United States, how do refineries match up, et cetera, which will influence that the response on exports. But again, I want to emphasize the context. This discussion, generally speaking, is happening without the context of we still import 7.5 million barrels a day of crude oil. We are, on the other hand, we have become, just in a few years, a substantial exporter of oil products. So we are exporting a lot of product, and we are still major importers of crude oil. I think those are very, very important considerations in addressing the question you raised. Those facts also emphasize something else very important. We remain linked to the global oil market and global oil prices, both through imports and exports.
I mean, it sounds to me, just to clarify a little, it sounds to me you're not excited about the idea of lifting that ban.
Let's just say that we are evaluating all of the factors, and I think when, perhaps the arguments are a little bit overventilated at the moment.
Sounds like a Keystone answer.
You decided to go there.
You said earlier, you mentioned the loan guarantee program. I think if we were writing the book, to borrow Steve Clemens' analogy earlier, the first chapter of the loan guarantee program, the word cylinder would probably be the first word. Bring us up to date on what that loan guarantee program has done since then. So
the loan guarantee program has already deployed $30 billion, roughly speaking, and again, across the energy spectrum, including, by the way, I believe the next speaker in terms of nuclear project for Southern Company, but fossil renewables efficiency. The portfolio has been a major success. Let me give you one good example in solar. In 2009, the United States had 0 utility-scale photovoltaic projects. And by the way, in 2009, going back to the financial discussion, debt financing was not exactly easily available. The loan program stepped in and provided that support for 5 projects. Successful. Today, there are 17 projects greater than 100 megawatts of photovoltaics, completely with private financing. That's the model of what we want to do. Get this kick-started, accelerate deployment, then have the private sector take over. Now, have there been failures? Yes. Solyndra is a default. The portfolio has had a 2% default rate. I don't know of other investment portfolios that have this kind of success rate. So it's very easy to find the 1, 2, 3 projects that have defaulted. It's a 2% default rate. We have as I said earlier, we have $40 billion left to go in authorities. We're planning to, assuming we find, and we have a great pipeline of very interesting projects, we intend to deploy that.
We're going to have to wrap up in a moment, or Steve Clemens is going to hit a gong backstage. But I do have one last question for you, which is there anything you can get done? Is there any target of opportunity for you if you're dealing with the Chairman, Lisa Murkowski, on the Senate Energy Committee next year, as opposed to Chairwoman Mary Landrieu?
First of all, when it comes to the Climate Action Plan, which is our main guide for what we are doing in the energy space, supplemented by energy security concerns and obviously driving the economy through new manufacturing programs, et cetera, we are exercising all of those programs through existing executive authority. We will continue to do that.
So you don't want to deal with Senator Murkowski? There's nowhere you see
it's well known that we have a very good relationship with Senator Landrieu, with Senator Murkowski. I think it's well known that we have worked very well across the aisle and across both chambers. That will continue, and we will continue as well to aggressively pursue our programs with our executive authorities.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary. It's a pleasure speaking with you.
Great. Thank you.